No more forest. I mean, once you buy the Lorax out, the forest is dead. I mean,
It's Dr. Seuss's The Road.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, trees, nobody's speaking for them, you know?
Hey, the Lorax is like, look, you got to cut some of these trees down so you can pay me some money, bitches.
I find it funny that, what you guys were talking about earlier, we're talking about this because obviously we just watched a commercial featuring what was a Mazda car.
Yeah,
and the Lorax
SUV, not a hybrid green SUV, a gas guzzling, carbon footprint stomping SUV.
So the
Lorax, and I speak for the SUVs.
The Lorax
and the
is driving. Yeah. The Lorax was driving that shit.
Now, to be fair, you just read this. Maybe they meant he was on Law and Order SUV.
We just watched the commercial.
I don't remember that. I blocked that out of my mind. I refuse to believe that that's the Lorax. I don't know, man. I grew up with the Lorax. It was really my first environmental lesson.
Yeah.
As a child.
I mean, outside of that Indian who cried when people threw pollution on the ground.
Okay, that's
and that uncle who touched you inappropriately.
Yeah, well, that same uncle was that Indian that cried.
I think he was the Lorax too.
But you know what? That Indian, he was okay. He shed a tear while he touched me, so I know he felt bad about it. It's all right. It was funny on that commercial too, because I saw one where they didn't even throw kids. You should look up these commercials on TV where they had this Indian, like they show a car going by and they throw trash on the ground and they pull up to this Indian and Indians just sitting there just crying. First of all, I'm surprised you never said, "Hey!" Okay, it's your fault. You're not taking action.
But it's because he's stoic.
But you know what else?
Oh.
I saw one commercial where somebody just threw trash at him. He just still stood there. He was like, "Fuck,
He should have said, "How could you?"
But the Lorax really, maybe my second environmental message as a kid. And thinking now these kids are looking at the Lorax and they see him on all kind of commercials and he's selling out at the theater, telling people to come see my movie. And kids are not going to care about the environment anymore. They're going to see, hey, you know what? You know what? The Lorax is getting paid. Shit, I'm going to get paid too.
Corey, that thing in there, that ain't the Lorax.
That's not the Lorax.
That's not the Lorax.
That dirty, polluting, sold out and sell out motherfucker. That's not the Lorax.
It's funny because I didn't grow up with the Lorax. I had no idea who the fuck he was.
That's
what
too bad.
a surprise.
No, I swear, I just read that motherfucker's book yesterday, and it took me like 2 seconds to read it.
He said, I read the novelization.
Alan Dean Foster's The Lorax.
Isn't it amazing?
And later in the day when I got done with it,
throw it out in the street.
But the thing is that, I'm not shocked by any of this. This is another fucking byproduct of what these studios are doing now with, these beloved characters, if you want to call them that, they just see money cows. And that's exactly what this Lorax is. And that's exactly what this goddamn movie is.
Well, I saw the movie is actually moderately true to the original message of the book.
Yeah.
I mean, even more so in some ways. It like all the Republicans and right wingers who are having a hissy fit right now about this movie. Oh, it's more liberal indoctrination. No, it's Dr. Seuss indoctrination that's been exactly that way since the original book. It's very left-wing environmentalist message. What the fuck did you think this movie was gonna be?
What it's like just trying to save a tree become liberal indoctrination?
I know. Well, it's very anti-logging. Anti-logging. It's very anti-corporation.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a whole big thing talking about the way corporations, by their very nature, have psychotic behavior, which is in fact true. But, I mean, they hate that shit. There's a lot more going on here even than in that book. But then you look at those commercials, it's like, oh, well, Universal decided to balance it out. So by having them sell,
and make a little do-re-mi on the side.
Yeah, by having them sell the Lorax sell disposable diapers, and
that is true. You said he's selling
a plutonium commercial or something.
But you said he's selling diapers.
Yeah,
right?
He is. Yeah, disposable diapers.
Fuck,
aerosol deodorant.
Yeah. Hey,
this new this ain't your daddy's Lorax.
Yeah, it sure is not.
This Lorax got to get paid.
They should have just given him a fucking hoodie. I mean, go all the way with it.
He's going to be the new spokesman for BP.
He's like, I'm the Lorax. I'm here to tell you that Al Gore is a liar.
Well, despite all that,
Leon's going to do that impression all night, by the way.
That kills me. And go see my movie. Shut up, man.
Well, despite all that, what did you guys think about this movie? Because I'm really curious.
Well, this book came out, and maybe it's kind of close to me. This came out, a lot of people think it came out in the 60s. It came out in 1971. And I think it is. This film is a reflection of how much things have changed. It's true that we do have a bigger environmental message now with this, which the movie I think does an all right job at trying to encompass and bring into the movie and address also, because this movie not only addresses the trees, but they come in and talk about how plastic bottles are bad for the environment and how
there's lots of messages along the way that it scatters just on one-off lines to insinuate this other stuff.
But I tell you, the if you go just by the book and a soon after cartoon that was directed by Chuck Jones, it's a very simple story. You have this kid who finds this mysterious tower where this creature or person or thing, they don't know what it is, the Onceler lives, and it's this desolate land that he lives in. He tells this kid, hey, I came in and all this desolation you see is because of me. I fucked it up. And he tells this kid, he says, look, I have this one last seed left. And if you go and plant it, you might, unless somebody does something like you might be able to bring back the trees. Now, of course, that's a very short book. It's the short is stretched out with musical numbers, but it's still a short animated
22
cartoon.
minutes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so now we have a 90-minute roughly cartoon. And this one, they give the kid a name. His name is Ted. He lives in this town where everybody's environment is made from plastic. No plants, organic plants, no organic trees. Everything is plastic, vinyl, whatever. And it's all run by this corporation. One guy who actually sells air to people. O'Hare, yes. And so this kid, Ted, who's voiced by Zac Efron, he has a crush on this girl who is voiced by Taylor Swift. And she has a thing for the trees. He's like, well, I'm not going to get to third base unless I go find a tree somewhere. And he goes to look for this tree. And this is where we kick into the story that we know from the book. He leaves somehow the confines of the town that's buried in a shroud of an illusion.
Once on the outside, Ted comes across this lone tower where inside the mysterious Onceler just lurks.
Why are you so interested in trees anyway? Why aren't you like other kids, breakdancing and wearing bell-bottoms and playing the Donkey Kongs?
Yeah, right. Yeah, I don't know. I just, thought it'd be kind of cool to have one,
Uh-huh. It's a girl, isn't it?
What? No.
Really? Because when a guy does something stupid once, well, that's because he's a guy. But if he does the same stupid thing twice, that's usually to impress some girl.
Hey, she's not some girl. She's a woman in high school, and she loves trees. And I'm gonna get her one.
Oh, how nice to see someone so undeterred by things like reality.
Thank you.
And the Onceler begins to tell him,
unlike the book, his backstory of when he came to this lush forest and started to chop down the trees to sell this thing called Thneeds. Thneed. Everybody Thneeds and Thneed or whatever. And when he starts to chop down trees, he summons the mystical creature called the Lorax, who says, man, you fucking up my neighborhood. All right? You're chopping down trees. Stop it. This is not a good thing. All these lovely creatures here and all this colorful land, you're going to chase it all away if you continue to do this.
From there, the movie greatly expands on the book's original message of corporate abuse and anti-over-consumerism.
So,
which I completely agree with, but that's just me personally. I mean, this movie's better to me because of its message. I'm like, hey man, there's not enough really unafraid pushing it out there left-wing propaganda. Go Lorax! Which is to say, it's not that it's a terribly entertaining collection of very strongly pushed left-wing propaganda. I mean, this is by the same guys who did Despicable Me, a movie I found passable. It was like, it's all right. It's not that it's bad. It's just not very funny.
I thought you loved this.
No, I was not one of those people. That was not me. No.
I think everybody except me loved it.
I know the Grinch over here hated it, but
I think I gave it a low matinee where I was like, I didn't hate it. There was nothing really special about it. It didn't really stand out. And the Lorax in those terms is kind of the same way. It doesn't really surprise you on any level. It doesn't do anything with animation that's going to make you drop your jaw. And none of the jokes are any more than chuckle worthy.
Yeah. You know what? Once again, it's that Despicable Me crew. I'm watching this. I'm like, that's what it is with these guys. They know how to make a movie, but they don't have the talent to write any funny jokes or to do anything impressive. Whole time I'm sorry. What do you mean? What? You asked my opinion.
No, I'm thinking you're talking specifically about Despicable Me.
Oh, I'm talking about both of them.
Oh, okay. What'd you give Despicable Me, by the way?
I gave
fuck you.
I gave it a rental. I thought
I give both of your opinions a rentals right now.
I thought just straight up generic. And once again, here where you're like, okay, you have the classic story of the Lorax, and I won't say that they fucked it up, but they made it so scattershot and so all over the place. They really took a lot of the teeth out of it. Like they want to make the Onceler a nice guy. Some of the stuff toward the end, once it turns into an action movie, I'm like, I kind of like this better than the actual story they're trying to tell because they're making it just flat. And just to like, I was just like, man, what is it that's not sticking with me? I went home and I watched the old cartoon because I was like, hey, I have this. I want to see. And the original cartoon, that was really anti-corporate. I mean, it was so like about the Onceler he was just a fucking asshole. He was like, the Onceler in this new movie, he's like a sweet guy who's just kind of misguided. That Onceler was telling the Lorax every day, fuck you. I'm making money for me and my family.
Yeah, he was a dick from the get-go.
He was. And it wasn't just about knocking the trees down because they make it all about, oh, well, you knock down the cotton candy trees and everything goes to hell. The original Onceler, it wasn't just enough to knock down the forest. It was like, hey, to really get my business going, I got to build roads. We're going to build towns. We're going to set up a whole everything. It's like, okay, this is a complete environmental wipeout in the name of progress. And here it's all very insular. It's like, well, in this one little section of Thneedville, if you cut down the cotton candy trees, then, you can just have to put up a plastic city. And it's like, all right, man, I guess.
To be fair, the plastic city did look pretty cool.
What'd you give it, Leon?
Already?
Yeah.
No. I will say this.
Are you tired or something?
No, I will say this, that in the original, the Onceler was an asshole, man.
He was. I was smoking a cigar the whole time.
I was convinced that he gave that kid that seed, and he was saying, when that tree grows, chop it down. I know I can make one more seed. I can sell that one more seed.
All right. Let's call this the elephant in the room. The fact that the Onceler says, like, listen, I got this one last tree seed, and if you go out there and plant it, we can change all this. It's like, motherfucker, you've been in this tower for 40 years. You couldn't plant this shit?
He knew his weakness. He knew that if he planted that tree, he'd chop it down himself. He needed somebody else that wasn't him to do it.
He had a whole new business clubbing baby seals. So, that requires all his attention.
He was going to go hunting with Dick Cheney.
He was melting glaciers and drowning polar bears, man.
I'll tell you this. I'm in the camp where I was really surprised by Despicable Me. I was surprised by how much I really liked it. I thought the humor in that worked great. So that was the only thing about seeing this trailer for the Lorax is once I realized those guys worked on it, I was like, okay, they're gonna at least entertain me. If this story doesn't, then whatever else they'll throw in it will do. Wow, I was completely and absolutely wrong. I thought this movie was so just bogged down with a bunch of filler that they just did not need. Somebody who has no idea who the Lorax is to begin with, never read the book. I'm like, all right, what is so great about you? I mean, you're like a fucking dingleberry to these trees. And it got to the point where I thought they were ripping themselves off with these bears that live in this magical land or whatever. I was like, wow, are you guys using the same gimmick that you used to make those workers?
The minions.
The minions work as far as like their cute little voices. I was like, are you guys really like throwing that at this and making these bears those minions by making them do cute, stupid things like in the foreground and just to get a cheap laugh out of me? Really?
Well, one of them totally should have mauled the Onceler. You're right.
Yeah. No. By the way, you really didn't like those little corn pop creatures, the minions?
Because
icy cold milk.
They would do little tiny cute things with them, but nothing genuinely funny.
Well, the problem with the movie is what I always say about kids' movies. The other day we were doing a recording and I was talking about how I had just seen a movie where they seem like they have to do loud, obnoxious things to get a laugh out of the kid. And that's what most of this movie is. I agree with you completely. First of all, the Lorax, see in the movie, and I don't want to keep comparing this to the short. I know it's a different thing, but I have to admit the Lorax kind of made a quiet entrance. So he kind of crept in and is like, yeah, you can't do shit. You know, all you can do is beg and say, please don't chop down a tree. In this movie, there's a whole, I mean, it's a bravada entrance. I mean, lightning crashes down, the clouds gather. I mean, there's sparks and fire everywhere. And after all that, he can't do shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
You just have to sit there and watch.
You got the power of like the emperor, and you can't stop somebody from swinging an axe. Come on, man.
You can't direct those lightning bolts where they need to be in this guy's fucking house.
I mean, what was that? What was all that lightning for? To light your joint so you can get high?
It's like a nice opening salvo, but then nothing. He's like the Jane Fonda of the
I mean, come on.
That's all I got.
But this movie it's done by animators who I think are very talented. I think they're very good animators that work on this. They have great character design. They do great posing for the characters. And these characters would be nice if they had just one moment of subtlety to them. Animators, some of them, and I know this because I've been around some of them that think this way. They think in broad terms of acting because they're just like stage actors. They have to have characters do these broad gestures and poses. And sometimes that translates into the story too. And it's bad because they'll bring in and have an actor, instead of having that actor do something that lends personality to that character, they'll ask them to do a bunch of takes of and that's what most of the characters do in this movie. When they're running from somebody, when they're riding in an action sequences in a car chase, on a bicycle or something, every time they're about to hit something, like, whoa, no, and that's most of the dialogue in the beginning of this movie and throughout the movie itself. And it also gets to a point where it's really sad to see them having to stretch out certain characters like the Onceler that didn't need that much characterization. When Ed Helms is brought in as the Onceler, we see his story about how he comes into the forest with his electric guitar, just so that he has an excuse to play some rock songs to illustrate how bad he has turned. It's like, man, that really is a stretch right there. You don't need that. And speaking of the Minions, it's not the Bears that they did it with. It was so obvious that they took the Minions who were so successful. That was an executive decision. Somebody says, we're going to be pitching this as the makers of Despicable Me. We need those little yellow nut sacks or whatever to be in this movie. Yeah, those little chicken nuggets, to be in this movie in some form or another. Can you do that? So they take some characters that were in the book and they give them these personalities that you don't really need. You have 3 fish that keep appearing and they keep singing and doing funny antics. And if you look at it, they are the exact same things as the Minions.
Okay, now they all are. Cause I would say those bears were the Minions. There's plenty of moments where they were doing things like trying to help each other get to the tallest tree to get the fruit, where they were doing bullshit like that, using those, using like that cutesy, stupid voice to easily,
the big expressive eyes.
Yeah, the big expressive eyes. Yeah, just using that same gimmick. Yeah. And they used it. Yeah, they used it for the bears. They used it for the fucking fish. They used it for the goddamn ducks. I mean, they used it for everything. And it's sad because those became the biggest characters in the movie, where you have the Lorax that really, besides having Danny DeVito's voice, he's pretty much forgettable. Well, he's completely forgettable
to the point that, like, I seem to remember him making a big entrance and then just not showing up for the rest of the movie. Yeah. It's almost like Danny DeVito himself said, like, look, you got me for a day. I'll record some lines in the morning. I'm going to go eat some sandwiches and smoke a cigar, and I'll come back and do the rest. And that's it.
And it's sad because, whatever anybody wants to latch on this movie, as far as the message that it has, if the liberals want to throw their shit at it, good luck. Cause you know what? Nobody's going to be paying attention to that. Everyone's going to be paying attention to how fucking boring and unfunny this movie is.
I don't really agree with that though.
I agree with it.
The liberal message is pretty on its sleeve and constant.
Yeah. I don't think liberals going to hate the movie.
Yeah. In fact, I think a lot of them are going to say, I didn't really like this movie, but I'm glad my kids saw it. Whereas I can't help but feel like Leon said earlier, hey man, that Chuck Jones cartoon is still fucking badass. And
it is.
It's probably on Netflix or something. I mean, I'm sure you can get it for free. Show your kids that shit. And at least then you don't have to sit through a 90-minute movie over and over and over again. Mm-hmm. You just have to sit through a 22-minute cartoon that
and
often.
It's got a darker tone, where this is just like an exploding box of crayons.
I don't know. I disagree with everybody who's saying that that is nothing original in the designs of it. I mean, it's taken from a Dr. Seuss book. If anything, I thought they did right in this movie is elaborating on his characters and the look of his art style. I actually visually liked the way the movie looked. I really liked Danny DeVito. I mean, the only character that I really liked in the movie was the Lorax. Danny DeVito, I thought, did a great job. I mean, it's almost as if, for me, Danny DeVito was just well suited to play the Lorax.
Because the same size as the Lorax.
If you put a yellow mustache on Dan DeVito, shit, they could
just cover him in mustard.
Yeah. I thought he was the only one that wasn't really overacting. I mean, even when
I'll give you that.
I will say also that when the movie got to the darkest part, it did bring me back to what really frightened me about the original. I mean, god damn, the Onslaught brought the apocalypse to the land. I mean,
and what good did the one Democrat do? Nothing. He just talks a lot and then didn't do shit.
I thought a lot.
Didn't work.
I was like, did this inspire Judge Dredd to where they have like the big mega city and then like the cursed earth? That's where all the cannibals live. You don't ever want to step foot over there.
Even like, this movie could have used some cannibals.
Yeah, it could have.
No, I was like, where's the zombies going to walk in? You know, when are they? Where are they? Yeah, but but when you get into other characters that you just don't need, Ted's family, who's one of the grandmother is Betty White, who's just being cast because she's Betty White and popular
who was
now.
the mother? I couldn't pick her.
Jenny
voice.
Slate was
Jenny
the mother.
Slate. Okay.
And
that's odd casting.
Yeah,
okay.
and they just do things just for an unfunny joke. Like there's one part where Ted is like, hey, I want to go find a tree. And Mom is like, hey, look, we don't need a tree. We got one right here. It does all of this. And it plays disco music. And they start playing the hustle and she starts doing a funny dance. Again, another animated thing. Let's make them do a funny dance.
Yep. What the end of Despicable
And by
Me?
the way, fuck God damn it. Stop doing the characters coming in at the end of the movie and doing these old ass dances that nobody does anymore.
I know.
You hate that.
I hate that.
I fucking
I
hate
really
that.
hate
I mean,
that.
how many times we got to see a fucking talking cartoon animal do the fucking Macarena? Nobody do that.
Well,
no more.
Guess what? With this movie, I knew it was coming.
There's one part in the movie that I actually thought was that I was going to hate, and they had that character O'Hare in the trailer. I thought that I would totally despise that character, and by the end of the movie, that character made me laugh.
I hated the design of that character because I was like, they're just throwing odd things together to get. He's a midget with a bowl cut and a big David Byrne suit, and he's the mayor.
It reminded me too much.
Whatever.
It reminded me too much of the character in The Incredibles, the one who creates the suits.
Right.
The little chili bowl.
Like they just carve pieces from other cartoon characters together, but having Rob Riggle do the voice, I think that's what saved that character.
Well,
because he did a great job of playing an asshole.
Because it is, you're right. It's David Byrne with that big white suit from Talking Heads combined with Uma Thurman from Pulp Fiction. And it's just weird. It's like, it doesn't work. Who approved that design? And the scariest thing about it, the one thing I could not get past, his eyeballs are too close together.
Yeah.
He's like inbred. It was scaring me.
Freakishly short. I thought there would be a romantic subplot between him and the Lorax. Why is he
That would've
that
made that
short?
movie.
He's the only one who's that short.
It would have gave the Lorax something to do.
True. He does have a mustache like a bear, so I can see them hooking up.
I don't know, man. I like I said, between liking the designs, and there was one part in the movie that was unnecessary. You did not need it at all.
One part,
there was one for me. There was one part where I was thinking I wouldn't like it, and I don't want to say what it is because it's so out of character for what the Onslaught is and what the Lorax is. But the movie actually got quiet, and it actually showed some subtle emotion going on, something that I really felt for a moment. These are real characters here, and it just lasts for a moment, and it's near the end of the movie, and it shouldn't even be in the film. And I'm just thinking, if they want to make, this is a movie where, it's another Dr. Seuss film to cash in on the name of Dr. Seuss. Fucking Universal has a theme park on Dr. Seuss. So they're just going to rape that.
Do.
They're going to rape that. I mean, if there's ever going to be a zombie apocalypse, it's going to be Dr. Seuss rising from the dead to eat these people who are making these fucking movies because they don't get them right. And and just between liking small things but disliking most of what they did with this, it's going to come down to a rental for me.
Of course, with Dr. Seuss is prime for them to try to do reinterpretations of, and they aren't true. But in the case of the Lorax, it felt more like a true rape. It was more like, hey, these ideals you got? Well, we're just going to show you what we think of your ideals and turn you out into the opposite of everything you stood for. Not the worst movie. And at the same time, I can't think of a single thing I liked about it. That moment you're talking about, you're right. That was a genuinely touching moment. I was like, this is what this needed more of, but in this movie, it's out of place. I don't even understand why it's here. And yeah, I did myself no favors with this movie by going back and watching the original cartoon. It's a rental. It's almost a low rental for me because it makes me mad, but I'll just say a rental.
That's important for your kids to grow up understanding how important the environment is. Show them the fucking original cartoon, because this is really just thoroughly mediocre, not terribly entertaining, but not terrible either. It's a rental. I mean, it's a very definition of a rental cartoon.
Yeah.
You know?
I'm sorry, but listening to all your reviews, it all sounds like some old bullshit to me. So that's exactly what I'm giving it. Some old bullshit, because, you know, they didn't try. They want to talk down to the kids. And that's what it felt like. I felt like I was watching something that shouldn't even really be on Nick Jr. Because you're right, Corey. There's nothing but loud characters doing loud things to fucking, you know, make you laugh. And I'm like, if I want that, I'll fucking go hang out at the Apollo or something, you know,
blow up some balloons and then pop them.
Yeah. And it's too bad, you know, because after I saw the movie, I actually went, checked out the book. And I was really stunned by how effective the ending of the Lorax is.
Oh, yeah.
To where, I agree with you, Leon. I definitely think the message, whatever message there was completely watered down, because there's the ending. I don't want to spoil it as much as I want to, but that ending goes so much against what that book meant. You know, there should have been a moment to make people really think. And that ending that was originally in that book, it's not in this movie at all.
Yeah, but you read the abridged
It's not.
version.
It's completely sugar coated.
Yeah, it
and
is.
I hated that. I'm Co-host 3000. And I speak for the fucking kids. Don't waste your fucking time with this. All right. Yeah. Period.
You have been warned. Thanks.
Yeah, okay.
You have been warned.
So who invited the giant furry peanut?
I'll go right up your nose.
You wouldn't hit a woman.
That's a woman?